Okay, and on our side here, we have 5 forests, 5 plains, 1 swamp, 1 Bloodfell Caves, 1 Blossoming Sands, 2 Dismal Backwaters, a Jungle Hollow, a Rugged Highlands, and a Scoured Barrens. So we are going to see... Now, after we check out the lands, we check out the gold cards next.
Yep.
For me, that's what's informative here. And it looks like, I mean, there's a lot of power here in Ari's deck, an Abomination of Gudul, an Abzan Charm, an Armament Core, Crackling Doom, Dune Blast, Ponyback Brigade. So fully dedicated 5-color strategy here with a lot of power.
Yeah, Ari actually did a deck building a seminar, for lack of a better term. We recorded him doing his deck building for Sealed, and we'll have that for you guys later today so you can see exactly how he came to this 5-color deck. I talked with him afterward, and he said, I'm very, very happy with my deck. I have great mana. I have great effects. Dune Blast probably being the best card in his deck. That card is outrageous. For for Lepore, he has 5-color cards as well. He's got Abomination of Gudul of his own. He's got an Abzan Guide. He has a Bear's Companion, a copy of Flying Crane Technique, an Ivy Tusk Fortress. He also has a Soultide Charm and a Winter Flame. So both these players have very powerful gold cards. What we have seen today, however, is that the players with 5-color decks, even though their mana is really good, there's no guarantee that you'll draw all of your mana because you don't have a card like Rampant Growth or Civic Wayfinder, ways to actually find them. You just have to draw them. We'll see if they can both actually draw all of their mana as we are underway here in game number 1 of round 6.
The mana fixing is powerful, but it is definitely high variance.
Yeah.
A lot of the cards you alluded to, they don't exist in this format. The traditional 5-color fixers, the Birds of Paradise of the world, it is based on lands. The lands are very good, but you still have to match your lands to your spells, and there's no guarantee that'll happen.
I have a feeling there's going to be nothing short about these games as both players start off their first 2 turns with lands that come into play tapped. Lax has a morph on turn number 3. We'll see, if Lepore has one on his 3rd turn of the game. Right now, Ari has access to blue, black, red, and green mana, so he's just missing white for Lepore. Looks like he did sacrifice a fetch land there, so he's got a mountain. He's actually got all 5 because that's a Sandstep Citadel, along with a Tranquil Cove, which will give you blue and white, and there's a red. So he's got them all. I may have just given away a little bit of information. Not sure if Ari saw that card. It looks like Frank has a play this turn.
Ari's start is also very a classic 5-color start, although not quite all colors of mana just yet.
Is it time for Lepore to play a morph? Looks like he's gotten a decision to make on which morph he does want to play. Ari a little impatient, looking to already untap his lands. And there is a morph there for Lepore, so it's a mystery.
He was debating, I believe, between Mistfire Weaver and the Woolly Loxodon, I think were the morphs in question.
Well, Ari's going to reveal a Herald of Benevenza, and now the Watch of the Roost is going to come into play. It's interesting because we have a white card in play and a white card in hand and no white mana. Sure.
Welcome to morphs.
Ari will follow up with an 0-5, so not a bad turn there for Lax. And this is a card here in Archer's Parapath that a lot of players have liked. It's an 0-5, and it can work its way in the opponent's life total, and it's stopping Lepore from attacking right now.
Good at blocking early on, and then better than the average 0-5 once you get to turn 7, turn 8.
Yeah.
Puts pressure on the opponent to have to do something. It's a slow clock, but these are not fast games, as you can see.
Lax is going to attack for 2 in the air with the Watcher of the Roost. He did play a forest and just does pass the turn back. So it's very likely that Ari is having some mana problems here.
Well, when you reveal the Herald of Benevenza and you pass on turn 5, I mean, it's indicating something's very wrong with this hand.
Frank will play his 5th land as an island, as we know. 5 mana is the flashpoint. And given that given that Frank has all this different color of mana in play, he can unmorph anything. Let's see what the spell's going to be here. It's Highland Game. Maybe a morph here as well. The morph is a Rattleclaw Mystic there for Lepore, so he's got a bunch of morphs in play.
So now the card we should be checking for is Death Frenzy, which is not in Ari's deck.
Yeah, that's the scary one. That's the one that gives -2/-2 to everything. And then you gain a life for each creature that dies this turn. 5 mana for that effect. 3 colorless, a green, and a black. Lax does not have that.
It's kind of a funny feature, you know? We talk about how powerful these decks are, and they are. They have a lot of powerful cards, but sometimes the boards are just 2/2s and 0-5s running into each other.
Yeah.
Does not look that impressive.
See, Frank's going to take a look at his morph, see what he has down. Do I want to flip up one of these? Ari blocked that middle morph last time, and he's blocking it again this time. So he feels as though that's the safe one for the Parapath to block. And he doesn't block with his own morph here.
Well, if it was safe the first time around, probably safe the second time around.
You would imagine.
Now, Frank may have just wanted to do other things with his mana that turn regardless, so there's no guarantee that there isn't some sort of large creature down there, but best not to mix it up, you know?
Lepore's going to play a Scoured Barrens before passing the turn back. Does gain a life. Lax is going to come in the air for 2 more points of damage. He's got another morph to play. And he's doing a little bit of draining with the parapet as we do go, of course, as every turn he does look to end here with a black mana and a colorless. So a Throttle is going to take care of this morph. It's an Abomination of Gudul, so to the graveyard the 3/4 flyer will go.
Ari trying to, apply enough pressure to keep his, keep at least Frank having to play a little bit of defense here while he waits for white mana, but that might not be an option here.
There's the Woolly Bully. That was the morph that was in the middle the entire time. And Lax blocked it again, and he lost that combat.
So that's a thing that can happen there. You think the morph is safe, but Frank was just doing other things with his mana.
Okay. Well, Loxodon's a pretty good morph in this format, too. 6/7, definitely a really powerful card. Lax is going to come across here for 2. Now, here's the big question, right? We know that Ari has Doom Blast in his deck. Now, he doesn't have the white mana for Doom Blast yet. Doesn't even have the card in his hand. Because if he does, boy, this game changes in a hurry.
And Ari is playing with 5 planes, too, so he does have untapped white mana in his list. Sometimes these decks do not.
Radiclaw Mystic's going to be turned face up, so a little bit of mana here for Lepore. You see the unmorph cost on that is 2 colorless. I'll give you a burst of mana. And now he's going to be able to cast Dead Drop. Well, okay. Now, Dead Drop's mana cost is 9 colorless and a black, so it costs 10 mana. Now, of course, it does have Delve on it, so you can lower the cost on it a little bit, but Ari's going to have to sacrifice 2 creatures, one of which is the mighty Ponyback Rider, but he doesn't have any white mana to unmorph it.
And Ari, for all the discussions of how good his mana was, it can still haunt you.
Mm-hmm. That's the world that we live in. The Sultai Scavenger's going to have to block the Woolly Loxodon. Some damage is going to come across. Lax will draw a card. He doesn't have white mana. Don't even know if he has to Doom Blast, but it's not going to matter as he will concede the game. So Frank Lepore, with a very powerful draw, is going to win game number 1 here over Ari Lax.
Not a lot to be said about that one.
No, not really. I mean, just did powerful stuff. Ari had some mana issues, but again, this isn't a format. You think of all these decks and all these formats where you can draft 5 color. I think of Shards of Alara, how you had like the Panoramas to fix your mana, and you had the Obelisk, and you had land cycling. You cycle Fiery Fall and all that stuff. You could really get a 5 color mana base. In this, you do have these lands that can provide 2 colors or sometimes 3 colors of mana to help fix your mana, but again, there's no guarantee that you draw those cards.
Much higher variance execution than having your Civic Wayfinders and your Borderland Rangers and so forth gluing the mana together.
And that's actually
Transguild Promenade, another card that, during Ravnica Block was kind of big cheats for people trying to build 5 color decks. And again, the facilitators are good, but they are 2 and 3 colors for the most part. They are not 5 color enablers.
That's the thing that I found interesting that we've watched so far. Fennel had this problem. Fennel, he was played against when he lost to Eli Cassis. Fennel was targeted by a Despise, and he had 4 lands that come, 4 like the dual lands that gain you a life, and a couple cards in his hand. And the 2 cards in his hand were Sirach Dragon Speaker and Abzan Charm. He couldn't cast either one. It's just like, how is that possible?
Right.
Frank Scarron had that problem last round where he had blue mana issues. One game it just never showed up. The second game it showed up too late. And it's like, if you look at these players' mana bases, the non-basics, I'm looking at Ari's right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 non-basic lands that come to play tapped. He's got the mana fixing here. He's playing all of his non-basics to, facilitate this. He's also got the 5 forests, 5 plains, and 1 swamp. His mana, in theory, is good. And he just had issues with his mana.
Same deal with Frank's side. He has 7 comes into play tap lands on top of a Bloodstained Mire. Yep. So it's roughly the same quality of mana fixing. But Frank was able to find his, and Ari's was not. And even for these slow, ponderous 5 color decks, you leave them unchecked. A lot of those morphs are going to be 4/4s and 5/5s and 6/6s. And once you get behind, it's going to be hard to catch up.
That's kind of the thing that I like about this approach that some of these players are taking right now, too, is we have seen a lot of players taking this 5-color approach, and we've seen other players, like a Darwin, like Benyu last round, where, hey, I'm going to go a 2-color approach. Benyu's deck was a white-red aggro deck, a very Boros-esque deck, and he had 2 Woolly Loxodons that he can really not even unmorph. Just because his goal is just, I want to beat you down before you get that 5-color base online. And if you stumble and fumble around, chances are I'm able to out-tempo and just beat you.
also telling here is, even though, again, this is supposed to be a slow, cumbersome matchup here, Ari chose to take the play, and that's out of respect for what the Morphs do in these games.
Ari starts things off with an Archer's Parapet. Now he's going to play a Morph and pass the turn back. Lepore with a Highland game. Well, that got outclassed pretty quickly.
It is low impact,
Yes.
let's say.
Lepore will play a 3-mana spell that turn. It is a copy of Tuskguard Captain.
One of the more efficient Outlast creatures.
Yep.
The 1-mana one seems so good.
A Dismal Backwater there for Ari. He's going to play an Anak Bondkin, it looks like, in just a moment. That's what he revealed to his watcher through, to be able to turn that up. Looks like he's already attacked and gained his life. Now he will play the Bondkin. Of course, that is the Outlast creature that can give everybody first strike when they have a counter. So
Another very efficient, very good early on in the game, and also quality late in the game.
that's what you ask for. Here's an Outlast activation on the Tuskguard Captain. So that's going to become a 3/4 now. Don't forget, with that one, whatever creatures have a counter have trample. But that's all that Lepore can do on that turn.
And Ari has a lot of time before he has to worry about that, because he has that Archer's Parapet locking up the ground.
Yeah. So Lack's going to roll up the sleeves a little bit, see how he wants to do a little bit of attacking here. Lepore does have 2 mana available. It's got the black-white dual land there in Scoured Barrens and a Mountain. That represents a couple of things as far as tricks are concerned. But now Lack's going to play a powerful card. He's going to go with the Armament Corp. And that is, boy, is that a good card.
I think that's got to be one of the best non-rares in the set.
That's what it feels like to me.
Great at every stage. And I think that part of Ari's game plan here is to make sure that Frank is never allowed to cash in that Highland game for any of Ari's cards. That's going to be on chump blocking detail in this game, I believe, is part of Ari's goal, because it's so low impact. There's no reason to let Frank ever trade that in for something that matters. And Ari's able to execute that as Frank very quickly chump blocks.
Yeah, the game is going to gain 2 life. Nothing too crazy there. There's an Outlast activation, just pass the turn back. Now, I kind of like this because I'm not sure. You see how Ari's already ready? This is the first player I've seen play around and hostilities so far today.
Well, he's got a huge edge on the board, and Frank's also not doing anything, just playing lands that are coming into play tapped and spinning his Outlast creature. This has all the makings of my opponent is setting up end hostilities.
Rugged Highlands is the land that Frank is going to play. He's just going to pass the turn back. But I love that play by Ari because I believe he has other spells to cast, but he's already ahead on the board, as you did mention, and Ari doesn't have to play anything else, right? He can just say, I'll just keep outlasting my Bondkin, and I'll keep attacking my flyer. And eventually you have to do something. First time today that I've seen someone play around end hostilities. This is something that, again, end hostilities is rare. It's not a mythic. The chances of you playing against it are, it's likely. It's something you should certainly be cognizant of.
In the 5-0 bracket against a 5-color control deck,
Yes.
against an opponent who's not really doing anything. I think that if Frank is able to kill the flyer, then Ari will deploy something else, because otherwise the board is locked up for the time being. But as long as this is going on, Ari's happy to just keep repeating these turns.
And there's a Sultai Charm, so the flyer is gone. So now Ari's probably going to have to shift what he's doing as he does play a Plains for the turn. 6 mana. He'll deploy some more threats now. There's a Hooded Hydra.
This
with
is
4
also
counters.
good end hostilities insurance.
You are right about that. Hooded Hydra, very powerful. Green, X. Enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters. In this instance, it is 4. Hooded Hydra dies. You put 1/1. You put a 1/1 green snake creature token in the battlefield for each +1/+1 counter. It's got morph and all that jazz. Frank Lepore knows that he is beat, so he's going to pack it up and pack it in. And the third game is where we are heading between these two players.
So that looks like it doesn't matter, Frank's concession there, but that's actually a huge deal. Because if Frank had end hostilities in his deck, he would keep playing if he knew he had some sort of draw step that would let him get back in the game. By conceding in that spot, I think Ari can pretty comfortably ignore the possibility of end hostilities for game 3. So that was a card that was clearly on Ari's radar there, game 2. He was making a lot of concessions to it. And Frank's concession there, I think, means that Ari can be a lot more comfortable just playing the stuff that's in his hand. That's a big deal.
Ari's a pretty sharp player. He's the kind of player who will pick up on that information. If Frank continues to play the game out, then that leads Ari to believe that maybe he has a Wrath effect. It doesn't have to be in hostilities. It can be Dune Blast, which is a card Ari does have in his deck. So I imagine that's on his radar. But by conceding that game and not playing it out and making Ari kill you, you're basically giving up the information, as you said, that I don't have a Wrath effect to draw to. And it might seem minor, but when you're both 5-0 and working your way through a Grand Prix, that can be major.
It's crazy, right? Because you can imagine let's say, we played this pretty long game in game 3 that Ari ends up winning. And you ask Frank what happened in the games, what happened in the match, and he'll describe maybe the cards that got played or whatever. Where it's very possible that concession in game 2 changes the way that Ari plays game 3 enough where that's the thing that matters. If end hostilities is still on Ari's radar, maybe he plays game 3 in a completely different way that results in Frank winning. That could be a huge deal.
That's part of the reason I love watching Reed Duke play.
Never tap.
Never
surrender.
Yeah,
never surrender.
And it's different, right, in constructed than it is in limited. Because in constructed, you know what's in your opponent's deck for the most part. The archetypes and people are playing stock decks and all that stuff. Sometimes there's brews, but whatever. Reed could very easily concede when someone just resolves a revelation for 10, but he never ever concedes games for the most part. In limited, I think there's even more reason to never concede for this exact example that we're talking about right now. For Ari, again, now for this third game, and I'll be interested to talk to him after the match if we have time. Just say, hey, you were prepared to be hit with end hostilities in game 2. Frank conceded a couple turns later. Did you even consider it for game 3? And I wouldn't be surprised if he said, well, if he conceded game 2, there's no way he has it.
Yeah. I understand, Frank saying there he's flooding out, getting his head kicked in, waiting for a death that's surely coming.
Yeah.
So I kind of understand, let's just move on to the next one. But given the way Ari was navigating that game, it's a huge piece of information.
We'll see if Lax can keep it rolling here and win another game, or if Lepore will be able to get it going with his 5-color deck. If you guys are just joining us, it is Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan. Star City Games bringing you Grand Prix Orlando. Just under 2,300 players doing battle this weekend. Only one can be champion, and could be one of these two players because both their steel decks look pretty nice.
And off to great starts as well.
Yeah.
Another thing, if I were Frank, I would probably go to the sideboard here and have removed the Highland game, because with Ari's deck being as powerful as it is, with the Archer's Parapet, I feel like it's so unlikely to matter.
Not that kind of matchup.
No, it's not about playing your 2-drop on 2.
Bull player is going to start at 21 here. Of course, going to play some of those tap lands or rugged highlands here for Lepore as well. You also see the Jungle Hollow. On Lax's side, he does have a copy of Blossoming Sands. He'll play the Anak Bondkin. See how he wants to use that on the third turn when we get to it.
Now, even if the matchup isn't about playing to the curve and trying to tempo your opponent out, the Bondkin's still an excellent play.
Yeah, good early, good late.
Yeah.
That's the kind of card that you want in sealed deck. And in limited in general, truth be told.
Whereas the Highland game, it's not clear if it's good at either stage of the game,
Soultide Charm is going to take care of the old Tusk Guard captain. So it looks like he's actually going to draw some cards, so I take that back.
Neither one of those creatures are good enough to kill. Probably at this stage of the game, though, giving up on a Soultide Charm this early is a pretty big cost. It implies that he's either got his curve set up with a Delve card, as you see here, or he's digging for colored mana or land drops or what have you.
Big hoots. The Hooting Mandrill, 4/4 trample. Can Lax get through that?
Probably the card in the set that is most fun to nickname.
I think by quite a wide margin as a large hoots will attack.
Yeah.
I could do this all day.
I have a whole roster of things to say, not all suitable for air.
A Bear's Companion, a 4/4 will be joining that very, very powerful uncommon. That is quite the magic card. Now, Lax was looking good to start. He was trying to have this tempo start, play a 2-drop, play a 3-drop, play a morph. Well, all of a sudden, there are some 4/4s on the table now.
And the Bondkin's getting invalidated in part because Ari only has 1 white mana.
Yep.
So if he wants to activate that, that comes at the expense of playing any other white card in his hand. And so we're seeing the same issue that occurred with the Highland game in game 2, where it's just not that impactful when you see all these 4/4s across the table.
Here come the 4/4s now. Into the red zone comes the Mandrills and the Bear token. Lax with a very quick block and unmorph, and it's a Hooded Hydra. Well, okay then.
Okay, well, this escalated pretty quickly.
We call that in the business a snap block.
Yeah.
As Hooded Hydra's turn face up, put 5+1/+1 counters. And this card is just busted. Because if this goes badly, okay.
Right.
That's
you have
fine.
an insurance policy of 5/1/1 tokens, which is not that bad.
Yeah. Ari could not block fast enough. We'll see if he wins this combat. Whew, that card is nasty.
For example, Frank has a throttle in his hand. He could throttle this, but it doesn't make 1 token. The tokens it generates are equal to +1/+1 counters, not power or toughness when it dies.
Yep.
So He may do this to save his bear, but
Yeah, I think Ari's thought process here is if you want to throttle this or, you know, smite the monster sister or anything, by all means. And he will throttle. Ari already getting his 5 snakes at the ready. He knows he's going to lose this thing. 4 damage will come across, and Lax is going to go to 14.
Thumb through some bears.
Yep. A lot of tokens in this format. Frank going to play a Tranquil Cove. Go up to 21. Back to Lax we go. Looks like an Abomination of Gudul was the draw for the turn. Let's see if there's any attacks here for Ari. He'll start by playing Bloodfell Caves, gain a life.
I'm a bit surprised that Ari didn't make a move to try to get the Hooting Mandrills off the table rather than the bear token, because I would rather have 5 1/1 tokens against the non-trampler than the trampler.
Sure.
It's a small thing, but Ari's clearly playing around something in that spot. But I would have made an effort to get the Mandrills off the table.
He'll activate the Outlast and the Tuskar Captain, so that's going to be a 3/4 now.
3/4 first striker.
This is true. And trample. It's got all the words. Here come the 4/4s. See how Lax wants to block again. Yep. All the snakes on the bears. 1 snake will be left. And there's a kill shot there. That's a pretty good turn there for Lax.
Yeah, doing a great job sort of measuring the tempo of the game here.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that was after damage got dealt, but still inside of combat.
Potentially, yeah, potentially. There's a Trail of Mystery. That card's great on turn 2. It's just okay now.
Yeah.
Trail of Mystery, this, again, fantastic on turn 2. 2 mana enchantment. When you play a Morph, you get to search your deck for a basic land and put it in your hand. When a permanent you control is turned face up, if it's creature, it gets +2/+2 until the turn. Really, really good card on turn 2. The big question is it good later in the game? It seems like it's just okay.
Trail of Mystery, when a permanent you control is turned face up, if it's a creature, I guess, so it does not interact with the future site land that had morph. I'm not totally sure.
Zoetic Cavern? Yeah. Gotta have that clarification, Patrick.
Yeah.
That is key.
I'm sure there's some other reason.
Yeah,
But,
probably something we haven't thought of yet.
probably in case there's other card types that turn face up, you don't want to give non-creatures +2/+2. So even if it looks wonky, whatever. It's just funny to me.
Hair of Anafenza was the draw for Lax.
Was it a creature? Yes, it was.
Yeah. Surprise, surprise.
Perhaps alluding to an expansion of Morph in the next set. I don't know.
Yeah. Jungle Hollow is the card play here by Lax. He will gain a life. He's done a pretty nice job of stabilizing the game. He does have to figure out what that morph is over there for Lepore. He's going to start by attacking for 3. It is a first striker. It tramples as well. 3 damage is going to come across to Lepore. Abomination of Gudul, that one's going to be cast face up for 6 mana. Pass the turn back over to Lepore, who will draw. Now, one card that Lax has to be a little bit cognizant of, what we saw in game number 1, Dead Drop.
And it wouldn't surprise me if Ari tries to be very conservative with this snake token to make sure that he has at least some fodder to throw away to Dead Drop in case it comes up.
Dead Drop, of course, the 10 mana sorcery that makes target player sacrifice 2 creatures. Tread a little bit carefully, as you did mention. Winter Flame also in Lepore's hand right now.
Ari does an excellent job of just playing around cards. It's clear he's concerned about particular things. Certain cards get on his radar for whatever reason, and he radically adjusts his game plan in the face of that.
Yep, block with the snake token.
Well, this has made Dead Drop a lot juicier.
See if he does want to cast this.
Well, I think Frank would ideally like to use the other removal spell, clearing out something small, and then Dead Dropping away the 2 big O's.
Yeah, use the Winter Flame to take care of the Anak Bondkin.
Exactly.
Winter Flame, of course, you choose one or both. It costs a colorless, a blue, and a red, so 3 mana. Tap target creature, and Winter Flame deals 2 damage to target creature, and it's an instant. Really, really good uncommon.
Especially against Outlast creatures, kill them before they get big, or tap them inside of your opponent's upkeep to prevent them from outlasting on the main phase.
Oh, there's a lot of interesting things that you can do with Winter Flame, I imagine. Lax will draw a card. Here comes the Abomination. It's in the air. And it looks like Lepore may say, you can't attack just yet. I'd like to cast this Winter Flame here if you don't mind. And I'll choose both. To here, tap that. That doesn't get to attack. Is Lax okay with that? Looks like he is. Lax just going to pass the turn back.
And this is going to be a big dead drop here.
So long as Frank has enough cards in his graveyard, which I imagine that he does, he's going to start by attacking. There's the block. And there is, excuse me, the Pine Walker. I apologize. Here's a Sultai Charm to kind of blow that out. Are you wondering how many cards are in the graveyard now?
And I don't know if Frank could cast it because his graveyard's a little bit off screen here. But instead of getting fancy inside combat there, I think my first order of business was just cast that dead drop.
Yeah.
It's so good in this spot and likely to get worse. Now Ari gets to attack with an Abomination of Gadul, maybe find some more action, maybe find another creature to throw out there.
I think he discarded the Herald of Enofenza. No interest in having that. That means his hand must be really good. Yeah, here's dead drop. Ari's going to take a look at his hand. You see his hand, he's got a Doom Blast, he's also got Crackling Doom. He's going to lose his 2 creatures, though, and now the Bear's Companion is going to come into play. So this game has basically been reset, except for Frank is left with a creature.
Well, Ari's got a ton of gas in his hand.
Oh, his hand's quite good. And he very quickly draws and plays Bitter Revelation.
One of the best cards you can have in these protracted games here.
So he's going to get to look at the top 4 cards, so he gets to take 2 of them.
It looks like Treasure Cruise among the cards he found here.
Well, he's rebuilding pretty well, I'll tell you what. You get 2 of them, you put the other 2 in the bin, and then you lose 2 life as well, but I think you're okay paying 2 life for 2 cards. 4 mana is an expensive cost for that effect, but still pretty good. Max is going to go through the graveyard. Again, it's very telling when, if you're Frank Lepore, your opponent attacks with Abomination of Gadul, triggers the draw discard, and they discard Herald of Enofenza. Okay, your hand's good.
Yeah.
All right, going to take a couple of cards here. Sultai Scavenger is what he's going to cast, so hit 1. Looks like he's going to just delve a couple of cards away because he wants to set up a bigger delve for the Treasure Cruise he has in his hand.
And I think Ari's going to be basically blocking at every chance he gets for the rest of the game because his life total is low. He's got a ton of power in his hand. It's just an issue of being able to deploy his resources.
Yep. You don't want to end the game with a Doom Blast and a Crackling Doom in your hand. You don't want to tell your friends about that.
Nothing I could have done.
Well, were you mana screwed? No, I had 10 lands in play.
Yeah. And 10 lands, all 5 colors.
Yeah. It's really nothing I
Sweeper,
can do.
removal spell, a Treasure Cruise, but, got unlucky.
3 mana here for Frank, or at least he's considering. It looks like Frank drew a Treasure Cruise of his own.
And these are the complicated spots where you want to leave your graveyard as intact as possible for future delve cards. So you need to think of, what's the card that I want to draw here? Now, what's the mana I can spend and delve the least that still allows me to top deck the card I really want to find?
It's a difficult decision. The other card that's complicating things here for Frank, too, is in his hand he also has a copy of Warden of the Eye that he's going to deploy, and then actually bring something back from the graveyard. He's going to get dead drop back from the graveyard. Not too shabby.
No.
Lax will draw. Oh, we're going to go on a cruise. Yeah, I can't remove those cards fast enough.
Well, Ari, on the other hand, is just interested in trying to play as much stuff as possible this turn.
Yep.
So he's willing to concede some of his graveyard efficiency to set up, something like this.
Oh, the old Dune Blast. And what I like about Ari's Dune Blast here is he doesn't get too creative. He's like, you're going to play a bunch more creatures, and then I'm going to Dune Blast the heck out of you. He says, I'll take my 2-for-1, get those things off the table. I just drew 3 cards with Treasure Cruise, and now all I have is my Scavenger. And I wouldn't be surprised as we watch this game continue if Ari just says, I'm just going to have 1 creature in play so that you can't dead drop 2 creatures away. And if he does add more to his board, the only way that he'll add more to his board is if he says, here's 4 creatures.
Exactly. He's just trying to, he goes underneath dead drop or he goes way over the top, but he doesn't deploy 2 quality creatures if he can avoid it.
So Lepore plays a morph, and I believe the morph that he played was Abomination of Gadul. Now, Abomination of Gadul is a 3/4 flyer, which in theory would be able to beat the Sultai Scavenger in combat. However, I think Lax has some other ideas. and some ways to take care of that. He just did draw 3 cards after all. This will unmorph. Perhaps it's time for a Crackling Doom. And Ari says, you don't get to block just yet.
Hold up.
That's Smite the Monsters. And that reason that works is because of Trail of Mystery. When you turn a morph up, it gets +2/+2.
I was like, is Smite the Monster's toughness or something? Like, what's going on here?
No. And that means Ari gets to keep holding that Crackling Doom. A nice play there by Lax. Let's see what this is going to be from Lepore. Is it time to go cruising himself?
You know what's really complicated? Delve in a deck that cares about getting cards out of its graveyard somewhere else down the line.
Yeah. The tension between Treasure Cruise and Dead Drop. Because you don't want to pay 10 mana for Dead Drop.
Or Treasure Cruise and Warden of the Eye.
Yep, that too. 3 cards are drawn here for Lepore.
Attention players. Joseph Pamplon, Chris Sullivan.
Here's 2 mana. Let's make it 3. There is the Tuskar captain yet again. Again, 2/3. Outlast for a single green. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter has trample. Quality green card in this format.
Is it a Tuskar captain? No, it's a Tuskguard captain. Totally different. It's a different thing.
There's an attack for 3. Lepore down to 4, it looks like. Lax with a forest. Looks like he's going to play a morph.
I believe that was the Ponyback Brigade.
Well, that's really good against Dead Drop, so there's that.
And this is great from Ari here. Now he's making it really juicy for Frank to spend his turn dead dropping.
Yes and no. Like, to me, like, I think if you have a pretty good understanding of the format, it's like, okay, what morph is he actually playing there where he knows I have Dead Drop in my hand? And Frank is a skilled player, so I think he might be able to read through this. But I think the problem might be for Frank is even if he reads through this appropriately, it might be a situation where I just can't do anything.
Yeah, his hand may not give him any other option.
Ponyback Brigade was a card when I initially saw it. I was like, I don't really think that card's all that great. I was wrong. That's okay.
Yeah, it's all those, the whole cycle of common, they're all exceptional.
Every time in Limited, I'm always like, well, 3/1/1s, why is that even all that great? Yeah, it's good every time.
I really like the fact that R&D shot pretty low with mostly single color morphs and then made the 3-color morphs a common superstars.
Yeah, me too.
You want those cards to stand out. You want those to be the things people are drafting around, first picking, and all that stuff.
And you work for those.
Yeah,
to flip them and
worked,
cast them. Yeah.
And then the rare single color morphs, they can be super good sometimes. That's fine.
So poor mate just passed the turn back. Yep, there's the pony back. 3 goblin tokens incoming. So there those are. Oh boy, look at that.
There
Bang.
you are.
Here I am. Giddy up. Let's see what Lax draws this turn. I wonder if he just tries to go for the W. He's going to cast Crackling Doom. What this is going to do is going to put Lepore down to 3. Yeah, and he's going to concede the game. So Ari Lax is going to win this match over Frank Lepore. 2-1. And for Ari, he moves on to 6-0 with what looks to be a pretty gosh darn good deck.
And Ari with the sigh of relief there. I mean, that was a long, difficult match.